York City commuters are seeing a controversial ad campaign displayed on subway system walls. The Defeat Jihad posters were created by a far-right group. They have a quote from novelist philosopher Ayn Rand, followed by the tagline, "Support Israel, Defeat Jihad." Critics say the ads are hateful toward Muslims, and initially the New York Transportation Authority rejected the ads, but a court upheld them as free speech. Earlier this week, an Egyptian-American columnist, Mona Eltahawy, was arrested in one subway station as she tried to spray paint over the ad, and it was filmed. Take a look.
I do, actually. I think this is freedom of expression, just as this is freedom of expression. Do you really? I do, yes. And who are you? Camilla.
No.
Oh, you're Camilla Giller.
No?
No, which Camilla are you then?
Tammy.
Really? Okay, fine. She's doing okay.
Stop her!
You're arrested.
Stop her! What she's doing?
Will you stop that?
No, stop it!
I know what you're arresting me for. What are you arresting me for? Tell me. Tell me what you're arresting me for. Is everybody watching? What is he arresting me for? Yeah? Well, tell me what it is. I want to know what the charge is. I seriously want to know the charge.
Well, Mona Eltahawy joins us now live from our New York studios, out of jail. You were asking the officers there in the subway, Mona, what are you arresting me for? What did they arrest you for?
Well, in the end, Hala, because he actually didn't say anything on the spot, but in the end, I was charged with criminal mischief, making graffiti, and possession of a graffiti instrument.
All right, so you spent the night in jail, and then what happened?
I spent about 22 hours in police custody and various police jails, and then I was arraigned before a judge, during which it was just an arraignment, and the judge said I had to return to the court on November the 29th. I have a defense attorney who found me through, he said at least 100 or 150 people wrote to him on Twitter, all Americans who support what I did, and asked him to represent me, and he agreed.
But not everyone supported what you did. You had people who tweeted back at you some very hateful things. But what I also found interesting is that people who, generally speaking, condemned the ad also criticized you on Twitter, saying, you know, all she's doing is seeking attention for herself. Max Blumenthal said Mona Eltahawy and Pam Geller, who's responsible for the group that put these ads out, are in a tacit media attention alliance. Another user said, the main principle Mona Eltahawy demonstrates here is her firm commitment to getting Mona Eltahawy into the news.
You know, I got to laugh, Hala, because I haven't heard any of these things because I've been so busy tackling right-wing racist hate. I would take all of this criticism seriously if the people who made that criticism had spent 22 hours in police custody and in various jails with me. I acted out of principle. I acted out of a belief in freedom of expression because, as your viewers saw in the video, I told that woman who comes from the group that financed the ad that if this ad is freedom of expression, then what I'm doing is also freedom of expression. Also, what I did, I believe, as an American citizen, is part of a long line of peaceful civil disobedience. The civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the anti-Vietnam War movements, every movement in the United States that has stood up to hate or injustice of any kind has involved civil disobedience. And I'm glad I was arrested. I'm glad that what happened to me has brought about this incredibly important discussion of what constitutes freedom of speech and unprotected speech and what we can do about freedom of speech and where our freedoms
But let me ask you, Mona,
in something like the New York subway.
I just want to jump in because I want to show you other examples, okay, that you may not have seen because you've been busy with other things, as you said. Other examples of how people, including some Jewish Americans, have responded to this ad that they consider hateful, and in particular one that caught my attention that came from the Dialogue Project that you may have heard of. And we're going to put that picture up there so you get a chance to see it. Essentially, the title of it is, I am a Jewish jihadi, reminding people of the true meaning of jihad, of harmonizing your religious principles with the way you act, etc., and saying, apologizing to Muslims if they are offended by hateful people. I ask my Muslim brothers and sisters to forgive those Jews whose fear and ignorance only points outward rather than inward. Some have pointed to this and said, here is the way to protest against the hateful ads, not spray painting an ad and not advertising that you're going to do that on Twitter. So how do you respond to that?
I salute anyone who went out and protested the racism and the hatred in those ads in the New York subway. I spent many hours in jail with 4 people. One of them, a longtime activist, and 3 of them, young university students who were not older than 19 years old, who went out and put stickers on those ads and were arrested for putting the stickers. So whether you put stickers on the ad, whether you put an alternative ad, whether you called 311 and protested, or whether you choose to spray paint like me, I support any kind of direct action that brings to light this racism. But let me tell you what our action that was, and I wanted people to pay attention to what I did, not because I'm in a ridiculous tacit agreement with Pamela Geller, who, by the way, has a long and hateful history of being anti-Muslim and anti-Arab. Because of the action of myself and those 4 other people, including those 3 students who are only 19, who were ready to be arrested and spend several hours in jail, when the MTA, the authority that runs the New York subway, met yesterday, they agreed, because they understood that those ads were racist and hateful, to change the terms under which they accepted, change advertising standards. This is not the death of freedom of speech, as people say. I'm a complete champion of freedom of speech. This is a recognition that those ads were racist and hateful.
So you, at this stage, I mean, having gone through what you went through, you would not change any of what you did this week?
Absolutely not, Hala.
Yeah.
In a second, I would do it all over again. Hala, listen, I understand that I have a media profile. I don't need to raise my media profile. I don't need to get out there and cause a stunt, especially with the New York Post, a right-wing tabloid that,
how did
again,
they know?
like
But how did they know you were going to be there? How did the New York Post happen to be in the subway?
I'm glad you asked that, because it's ridiculous that anybody thinks that the New York Post, owned by Rupert Murdoch, and a right-wing tabloid that, again, like Pamela Geller, has a long history of anti-Muslim hate. The New York Post was there because once the posters were put up, people began very soon after to deface them with stickers. I witnessed a man in another station about 2 hours before my spray painting actually rip a poster, say a word I can't say on live television, even though I say it on Twitter, and say, this is unacceptable in New York. I did not choose to destroy the poster. I chose to just spray on it, and you can still see the poster underneath it, because I wanted freedom of expression on top of freedom of expression. By the time I got there, because other posters had been defaced, there are 10 of them across the city, the media already knew to go and stand by each and every single poster. There was already media in front of that man.
They weren't expecting you specifically. They were expecting just protests from people in general. Yeah.
Exactly. That woman who threw herself between me, who I said, are you defending hate with your body? She is from the group that put up those posters, that funded the posters. So she was there to protect the poster, and the New York Post and other media were there to film any reaction. What kind of why on earth would the New York Post agree to someone like me, who has a long history of speaking out against right-wing hate, and also, by the way, because I spoke to CNN several times from Cairo when I was there 3 weeks ago when the protests broke out, and I made it very clear that I reject right-wing hate on both sides when the violent protests broke out over that film.
All right.
My protest was peaceful and non-violent, and I would do it again in a second.
Good. That was going to be my last and final question. Would you do it again? Mona Eltahawy says yes. Mona Eltahawy, thanks for joining us from New York. They were arrested a few days ago for spray painting that ad in the New York subway. Thank you very much. And since all of this plays out off